got a lot of shit to say, so I'ma do this every day. I'll be writing things until I'm fucking buried in my grave. 6 feet deep under, but my body won't decay. Cause my messages are timeless, so they'll put them on display. Oh yeah, I rap with a certainty, I have a sense of urgency. A message for eternity, for everyone internally. I had some people burning me, but now they fucking learn to see I ain't the one to fuck with. Now they looking nervously, and I don't really care what you think of me respectfully. You can kick rocks if you think you're fucking better, see. I will outwork you, turn you to an enemy. Hurt you so bad that you're gonna need some therapy. I got the motherfucking recipe. I've been cooking up hits, I'ma leave a legacy. You'll be looking small when you're standing right next to me. I'm 5'10", bitch, but I'm 10 feet next to me. I don't give a fuck what you say. Yeah, I'ma do shit my way. So you can go kick rocks, I'ma stack bricks up, build what I want to make. Cause I don't give a fuck what you say. Yeah, I'ma do shit my way. So you can go kick rocks, I'ma stack bricks up, build what I want to make. Yeah, I'ma do it my way.
Hello, motherfucker.
Let's play a game.
Hello everybody. I've got 4 people watching. That makes a change, really does. I was a bit bored, so I thought, well, there's a few things that are going on. And I thought I'd come in today and have a look at, is this the end of the Manosphere? Is it the end of the red pill? So we're going to be looking at some stuff by Rollo Tomassi, and I will be adding some of my comments, which are coming from my own personal opinion, as opposed to Rollo's clearly voluminous set of scientific research that he has put into it. We will also look at man versus bear, and we will look at depopulation, linking it all together in some ways. So let's present. I've got to be very careful not to click that red X, leave the studio button here. Yeah, nerdy, I'll give you one. I'll give you it.
Drizzle, baby.
Did that come through for you, nerdy? Just let me know. Hello, nerdy. Hello, Hillary's. So let me present the right thing instead of pressing the wrong button. Okay, so this is Rollo Tomassi, and this is from last week, maybe the week before, whatever. Hello, Brojo, WTF, question mark. Not expecting you to go live for another hour and 20 minutes to fit in with 420, so I thought I'd jump in because I was bored waiting for you. So let's have a quick look at this. This is called, is this the end of the Manosphere?
Cycle at that time. So Candace Owens, for example, that you were mentioning just right before, her Twitter handle in 2015 was Red Pill Black.
Right.
She was using the term red pill as
Switch.
I love adverts.
(2021). And as part of that conversation, I said the reason for this is because if people will come into the red pill and they will use the red pill as sort of a loose brand, or it's not a registered trademark. Anybody can use the word red pill. Mm-hmm. And so I was trying to take them back as far as, like, say, 2015, 2016 election cycle at that time. Mm-hmm. So Candace Owens, for example, that you were mentioning just right before, her Twitter handle in 2015 was Red Pill Black.
Right.
She was using the term red pill as far back as 2015.
And I'm going to let you go, but there's...
So what Rollo is describing here is the way that the term red pill has changed over time. He mentions Candace Owens' Twitter handle, Red Pill Black, and Candace Owens focused at that time in 2015 on politics. So Red Pill was coming from her view at a wider perspective than Rollo Tomassi's view. He is concerned that the Red Pill we're jumping across these different genres, from dating, which is where he comes from, into sexual dynamics, all of that stuff. And it's jumping into politics and society and the general stuff. And he's concerned that if it becomes a hashtag, if it becomes trending, if it becomes mainstream, people will start using the term red pill for whatever they want it, for whatever they want it to mean. Everything becomes red pill. Red pill therefore means nothing, or the term gets completely bastardized. And anybody's pet ideology, if they've got a conviction in their beliefs, they can basically say, that is red pill, when actually it's the opposite. Red pill is what is true. That is the mindset behind what the red pill is. But where did it come from? I'm going to jump, and I'm likely to get hit by another set of adverts at some point. But I'm going to jump further on in this video, and Rollo's going to give us a very quick potted history of where the red pill came from.
You have to track through the history here, because if you go back to the seduction days, if you go to the old pickup artists from the mid 2000s, like Mystery, Neil Strauss. I mean, VH1 had what, the pickup artist show and everything, and so that evolved into what we now call the red pill.
But wasn't that so? This, let me hone in on this, because I asked you if the red pill was dying, and you said there's been
I don't think it's not dying.
Okay, not dying, but you said there's been different waves.
Well, there's cycles. Okay,
cycles,
so
cool.
I've been doing this probably longer than anybody else has. Okay,
I mean, why I said I wanted
beyond
to
like say
out.
Mystery and some of these other guys, but as far as like the evolution of the Manosphere, I've watched this happen for 22 years, 23 years now, and so I was trying to relate to them was the last election cycle during 2019 to 2020. Everybody who was in the red pill space wanted to pivot into politics and into social issues, which is exactly what we're seeing right now.
So that was an extremely potted and very short history of the birth of the red pill at the time, back in 2005, something like that, I think he's talking about, with the pickup artists. And it comes from the viewpoint of Rollo. He is really not happy about the concept that it moves into politics, it moves into society, it moves into other areas. So I'm now going to give my perspective on this, as opposed to Rollo's. I disagree somewhat on this point with Rollo, but there's a reason for that. So just for Brojo and Nerdy and Hillary's, I will be bloviating for a little bit. So my view is that the red pill mindset has been around forever. Well, maybe not forever, but for as long as I understand history, in terms of human beings, it has been around that long, but it's not been called the red pill. The red pill concept of red pill came about with the Matrix, as most people know. But prior to that, it was just called science. The whole thing about the red pill is the concept of science. It's all about objectivity. It's all about finding the truth. It's about observation. It's about assessing an original hypothesis against its outcomes, seeing if that hypothesis was correct or is wrong. It's about describing reality, as opposed to promoting the propaganda that you're being fed by a government, by a bunch of lobbyists, by the media. That's how I see the red pill. I have my own little red pill journey where I wasn't red pill, but I understood some certain things way back when, in the early 1980s, as a young teenager, But I'm not going to go into that because there was no term of taking the red pill or whatever. It was just, oh, that's happening. Right. I need to take that into account for how I live my life. And the thing that it was marriage. Everything was ending in divorce. Every marriage around from all of my friends were all ending in divorce. It's like, well, marriage doesn't really work. Not long term anyway. It's certainly not this till death do us part type of thing. So that was my start into this without really understanding anything other than I'd picked up these ideas, I'd picked up this concept, I'd picked up this thing that is happening in society that is no longer actually working. And it led to a lot of thinking about it and whatever, and a lot of my own decisions about how to live my life. So what does Rollo mean by the pickup artistry game evolved into the red pill? And why doesn't he like the pivot into wider spheres like politics and society? He doesn't exactly explain it. And I'll answer the second part first. Why doesn't he like the pivot? This sits with the issue that Rollo needs to promote, that he started the red pill in relation to dating and intersexual dynamics. If it pivots, or the concept of the red pill starts being seen as having long-standing principles within science, if it moves over to you can start using this mindset to look at politics and look at propaganda and look at the media and look at society in general, Rollo loses his ability to claim it as his. I've no problem with Rollo's position whatsoever. I don't have a problem. As I said, this is just my perspective. He's got his. I say good luck to him. Well done on his books. The Rational Male, even though it's really hard to read because it's in the smallest font that you could ever imagine. And somebody my age, I can't bloody read the thing easily at all. But well done on those books. And he's highlighting a lot of things from his perspective, which is a very specific perspective. The dating scene, intersexual dynamics. That's his focus. He has been instrumental in getting people to understand what is going on. But for some reason, he doesn't want it taken into wider spheres. And those wider spheres actually provide the precise knock-on outcomes of what the red pill dating and intersexual dynamic stuff he is doing have on society as a whole. So it does lead into other stuff. So his red pill of the dating scene describes the evidence. The red pill says, this is what many women want. This is what many men want. And it doesn't matter what either gender says they want. What is important from a red pill perspective is what are each actually looking for and what do each respond favourably to. So from a PUA perspective, the pickup artists, men and women are actually lying all the time. What they say they want and look for isn't true. What is true is what their actions tell us, i.e. what is the reality, the red pill, based on their actions, outcomes, responses, the way they act to certain triggers, etc. So the red pill is merely a description. It's what Rollo Tomassi calls praxeology. I don't know whether he actually coined that term. I think he might have done. It might never have been around before then. So if it was him that actually coined it, excellent. Praxeology. It's all about what is the evidence, what is the reality, what is the situation, how did it come about, what are the connections there, and that is all that the red pill is. The red pill is evidence of what the actions, reactions, outcomes, and desires are. End of story. It does go quite deep, of course, in terms of determining cause and effect, or applying correlation as a best or only alternative to cause. But it produces the equivalent of a scientific research paper assessing hypotheses and testing words and actions against outcomes. What produces the best outcomes? What doesn't produce the best outcomes? What produces the outcomes that people are trying to achieve? Or what are the things that people do based on what initial triggers? So that's what the red pill is. So let's go back to the first part with the PUAs, the pickup artists. How did that evolve into the red pill? Well, this is where things get a bit tricky and many people don't really understand. They don't get it. They don't get the distinction between the two. How you react to the information provided from having a red pill mindset, which is that's exactly what the PUAs did in teaching people and using certain tools relating to body language, how to talk, how to act, how to treat women with the intention of getting them to the bedroom, etc. That thing you actually do when you know the evidence and you base decisions off of it, i.e. the red pill, that's not any part of the red pill. Those actions that you determine you're going to take, they're not the red pill. Because the red pill's descriptive only. Using the red pill information to your advantage, that's prescription. That's what the influencers tell people to do, which is totally different from the actual red pill perspective. That's using the information. One example to highlight the difference is the original feminism theory that described the impact society was having on women in general and why things needed to be better. That bit was the red pill, describing what was happening. After that, every single aspect of how they came together as a movement of feminists, as opposed to feminism, is what they did with that information. It led to the vote, equal pay, no-fault divorce, discrimination against men, unequal laws, #believe all women, redefining equality. Instead of it being equality of opportunity, it now means equity in terms of outcomes, irrespective of skill or merit. It's led to ideological and utopian ideals that don't work in reality. Refusal to acknowledge failure or take any personal responsibility. Happily falsely accusing men of the most heinous crimes when they did no such thing, and women getting away with it without a shred of evidence, requiring men to prove negatives in a court of law where the assumption has been guilty until proven innocent, etc., etc., etc. That whole area of what to do about the information that we know, that becomes prescription. That's nothing to do with the red pill. That's to do with theories on how you use the information. It ends up with ideologies in a lot of areas. It ends up with politics, etc. A good example arises later in this video with Rollo on it. I'm not going to get to that bit. And that's in his book Principia, Isaac Newton described gravity. All he did was describe gravity. That's red pill. It was a description. It was the scientific aspect. It's what is. What you do with such information, how you react to the concept of gravity for whatever purposes, is prescription. And the interesting thing is, as humans, we naturally use information to actually go, so what? What are we going to do about that? What's the next step? How do we fix something given we know this? So prescription naturally arises from the description. So there is a direct link, but description is red pill. Prescription is influencers trying to tell you what to do now that we know red pill. But if those underlying descriptions and premises are actually false, such as those used in ideology, propaganda, lies, etc., the type of stuff our politicians do all the time, and lobbyists do, rather than using the red pill, you're rarely going to produce solutions that address the true issues. So that's why I say the red pill mindset crosses over from the dating world, from the flow of intersexual dynamics, and it moves into the real world and politics and law and education and everything to do with the government and the media. So the dating world is the bedrock of society. Dating leads to relationships, it leads to sex, it leads to pregnancy. Pregnancies produce people. People are society. Society doesn't exist without people. The only way society goes forward is through politics and governance, whatever societal, governmental or economic model is chosen. And then there's the problems of what happens when politics is broken, because that's really easy. Mainly because the only people who get power are those that want it so badly. They're willing to sacrifice their whole life to have that status and power. That's why there's got to be brakes on power and brakes on government, checks and balances, and the ability to remove people and governments from power because they're not doing things that are to the benefit of society and the country. Now that's easier said than done, of course. It usually leads to physical conflict and many people dying in order to achieve a future society that is beneficial to the vast majority, because these people do not want to give up their power. They have worked all their lives. That is their whole purpose, to be in power. So it all goes round and round. Let's get back to the video.
Everybody wants to turn the red pill into their social ideology, their pet name for their whatever their pet social ideology happens to be. So anything, literally anything right now can be called red pill because it's just there to appeal to a certain audience.
Okay, but
So Rollo's concern is that the expansion of the red pill into other areas of society waters down the message that the red pill gives. It makes everything red pill, meaning there is no such thing as red pill. So I fully understand Rollo's message here. In essence, the whole concept, everything behind the red pill has to be controlled and maintained, not allowed to be bastardized if it's going to offer any value at all. Otherwise, it's just going to peter away, or it's going to get used for the wrong things. It's going to hit propaganda and ideology, which is not the way that it needs to go, because the red pill is supposed to be like science. But I say that's exactly why it has to be applied to wider aspects. But it has to be controlled and maintained by those people who hold to the principles of it. And those principles, as far as I can tell, and I could easily be very wrong here, are around the scientific method. They're around objectivity. They're around clear definitions, clear principles and values, and with a very clear outcome or objective required. And a very simple one of those is the government will protect its country type of thing. And by definition, all of that stuff about what you do with the information, that is all prescription. Okay, let's move on a little bit into Rollo's arguments as to how difficult is the red pill and why is it going wrong at the moment.
Into the YouTube years and then the social media, Instagram, Twitter, all that good stuff.
And that's obviously how Tate
so
blew
it's
up.
become exponentially, more and more people are aware of it. What I'm saying is that the original intention of it was strictly, when I talk about the red pill, it's strictly intersexual dynamics. It's female nature, male nature, evolutionary psychology, sociology, anthropology. You've asked me in this show a 1,000 different times, give us the elevator pitch for the red pill. There is no elevator pitch. It is a college major is what it is, okay? It is not a bumper sticker. It's not like, I'm red pill, here it is.
Unfortunately, kids are dropping out of college and we're seeing that they're getting indoctrinated and not educated.
Exactly.
So as much as it's like, nope, you got to take the whole class, the whole course, someone's like, can I just get the Cliff Notes, bro? But
Exactly.
I get
And the Cliff Notes are much easier to monetize and commercialize than it is to actually pay attention to what the hell is going on.
And these are really good points that he's making. There is a lot to it. It is a scientific method. But there's a lot of people out there that just want to make money. And they just want to say the right things that are going to get them people following them. So this section is highlighting the precise problems of what Rollo terms the red pill going mainstream. He's basically saying there's too many people who are in the sphere who do not want to put the work in to understand what the red pill actually is. But they do want to lay claim to being red pill because it sounds edgy, doesn't it? I'm red pill. It's got that Keanu Reeves superhero vibes. If I'm red pill, I know what's going on and I'm fighting against the machine. What Rollo's saying is if you don't know what that actually means, you're just a wannabe that is fucking everything up.
A prescription to them as well, right? And that's the biggest
exactly.
difference between you guys and so many other people I've seen in the space. A lot of the people who've got cancelled is you guys don't give prescriptions.
No.
When people start giving prescriptions and they start injecting their own beliefs into those prescriptions, that's where things really go amiss.
That's the difference between best practices and what weird, like the red pill is what I've called a praxeology. It is not an ideology. It is not a philosophy. It is not a belief set. It is not a religion. It is not a cult. It is not whatever your system of belief happens to be. And the reason why people want to turn it into that is because that's the only way they can understand it. They have to say your philosophy, your beliefs, or you preach. It's never teach. You preach.
Right.
Ooh. Right.
Like Abba and preach.
So that's Rollo's explanation as to why people turn it around and say the prescription is red pill. And that's why these people are Rollo, Aaron Clary, Fresh and Fit Clips, Just Pearly Things, Sandman, who else? Entrepreneurs in Cars, Rich Cooper, Bo Refek from Legion of Men, various others. They're all on this list as essentially domestic terrorists. They're after male supremacy. Rollo's fighting back against this. What he does is not about male supremacy. That he keeps it very, very, very clear. This is about what is actually happening in the world, what is going on, and then he leaves it at that. You need to determine your own way forward. But what's interesting about that is that it looks like some of the women in the audience in this clip, they understand it. They are differentiating between what the evidence is and then what the influencers are trying to sell. Okay, let's have a bit of a break from that. And let's move to Man versus Bear. This provides a really good opposite view of what's actually happening in terms of the way that women are taught stuff. Let's see if I can get away with this without having too many adverts on it.
You did do that with the black bear, though. You looked down, walked back. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or like when you see them, like if you're backpacking, when you see them, you just kind of they just mind their own business. They don't really want your
stuff.
stuff.
Did you ever do that? Have you ever like crossed paths with a man and looked down?
I feel like every time I see a man, I don't want to make eye contact.
Oh shit. Okay. All right.
This is a problem. This is a big problem. She was originally talking about bears. As long as you keep your eyes down and act meek and don't do X, Y, Z, then they'll generally just shuffle off, apparently. But then she says she doesn't hold eye contact with any men. What? Why do we have such a problem? Is she lying? Is she virtue signaling? Or does she actually do this? I mean, as a university student in America, I wonder how many men that she has met randomly on a night out that she ends up happily having an intimate time with. I don't know. I haven't got a clue. But there's a lot of young girls here that are from universities, and we know that that happens. And a lot of them have got exactly the same position. So, back to the point. Is every man a danger to women? Or have women been indoctrinated with stranger danger? When we actually know that you're overwhelmingly likely to be attacked by someone that you know, and you know them very well, rather than by a stranger. What type of men are actually walking in the woods, hiking out in the mountains? They're a particular type of person, people who like walking and hiking. But they're dangerous. Women seem to have been told by their parents, teachers, peers, media, feminist influencers to keep away from men. These are young girls that keep away from men. Men are dangerous. Men will do X, Y, or Z to you. Do not go towards men. Do not go near men. I can understand a father's or mother's warning to a young child about keeping away from people you don't know. But that's somewhat different to the way one composes oneself or connects to others in adult life. But women seem to have developed this idea that every man is a threat, or that there are so many men out there who are a threat that they need to treat every man as if they are a threat. Now, if that's not an indoctrination of a hate towards men, a fear of men, a phobia, if that's not the utmost extreme of toxic misandry towards one gender, I don't really know how to describe it. I mean, I haven't actually seen the statistics, so I don't know whether this is true, but I have heard that the vast majority of catcalling and wolf whistling and inappropriate behaviour or approaching is done by the very same small subset of men over and over and over again ad infinitum. Take the pickup artists as an example. The vast majority of men nowadays will not attempt to go up to somebody in public and talk to them. It's not the done thing nowadays. It might have been when I was growing up, but it's not now. But the people that are doing it, the pickup artists, are they the ones that are giving off these vibes? And because they do it so often and they're not really that picky who they choose, they would possibly choose any one of the 5 women that are on this video right now, or they might choose all of them. One of them says no, so they move on to the next one. But do they take no as an answer, or do they continue? I don't know. I'm not a pickup artist. I'm not from the PUA community. I don't know anything about it at all. And does that lead to an enhancement of the concept that there's nearly every man out there is doing this stuff and causing shit? I've no idea. But if you look at domestic violence, it has been highlighted in scientific research that female violence on their partner is just as prevalent as male violence on their female partner. And the male violence on the female partner is most often caused by the prior actions and behaviours of the female. Now, this was found to be true by Erin Pizzey back in 1971. She opened the first women's shelter in Chiswick in London back then. And she found, Erin Pizzey did, she found that nearly all women in the shelter had been the abusive perpetrator to their partners. And eventually their partner snapped, did something back, and the women ran to the police and, in today's terminology, destroyed their reputation online. Complete bang, that's the end of it. You're arrested, you lose your job, you lose this, you lose that, you got no access to your kids, etc. Possibly end up on an assault list. And we also know in lesbian relationships that those relationships have the highest levels of domestic violence, reported domestic violence. But is that because when it's two women having a go at each other, their standard of what contributes domestic violence is way down here? It's anything. I heard earlier this week someone telling their partner that they no longer love them is emotional abuse, which, if somebody determines that it's emotional abuse from their own personal perspective, that automatically means they class it as domestic violence. They do. They class it as violence. So no wonder there are huge numbers of cases of violence in lesbian relationships, because women's threshold for what is violence is so low, and men's threshold for what is violence is so high, particularly when it's a woman causing violence against them, be that emotional abuse, verbal abuse, physical abuse, anything. Men will generally do nothing until it gets to high levels of physical violence. So the conversation moved on to man versus bear. Further, would they rather be alone in the woods and come across a random bear or a random man? Most of them chose they'd prefer to come face to face with a bear. I think it was about 60% of them chose that. There was at least 3 that said no, man. And having had that bit of to and fro and finding out, the conversation turned to the dangerous nature of men. Because Brian wanted to know, okay, if you would choose bear rather than man, there must be an implication there that you've got some understanding that there's a very high level of men that they believe would, in some way, cause violence towards them. That would be even worse and at even higher probability than a bear assaulting them. And a bear wouldn't really stop at just assaulting them. And these 2 women on the right-hand side, with the long browny blonde hair, they both said that they thought that the numbers were 30% or above. So, if I can find the right place, I want to go back. That'll do. Now this comes back into what was said earlier.
It's justified by the numbers, whether you should fear that or not. I don't understand.
I don't
Shouldn't
think
I be
this
able
is
to
a
use my
numbers
logical
game.
brain, even if I don't have a vagina, to take note as to whether or not this is possible or not possible? Do I need to be a woman to note that 55 million men obviously and clearly don't want to kill you in a forest? Did I need to be a woman to know that?
I think you're a little stuck on the number. I think, like, really what we're talking about is the female experience, which you can't speak to.
Yeah, but I can speak to the male experience. And don't you think the male experience can speak to the male experience of how many men, I think, would actually want to hurt you?
Well, I'm really happy that you wouldn't hurt me in the parking lot for what it's worth.
It's not our job to kiss your ass because you're a woman. I'm having an adult conversation with you. So
I didn't ask you to kiss my ass.
I don't know why I need to look at everything from feminist standpoint theory or from your perspective when you so easily dismiss mine. I'm telling you that your number is absurd. It makes no sense. And as you retract it, you very quickly retracted it because you realized how absurd it was. Why would you say that I have to be a woman in order to speak to this? That seems insane.
I didn't say that. I said that I was talking about my estimate.
And this is the type of discussion that they ended up having. It got very heated. It got pretty nasty between each of them. But I want to get to I think I've ended up at the wrong bit because I've missed the area where I actually wanted to highlight it.
I think that it was inaccurate, but I'm saying
I believe that
a little
because you
bothered.
don't
That's
believe
maybe there's an where the
to you to
misconception
be-
is.
Yeah, doesn't that seem to you to be illegitimate, though? If you
Very for that. So no, I meant not.
do something horrible, men, by your estimate, would want
You gotta
to
fix that.
50 horrible things to you.
So yeah, I'd gone way too far and really cocked up everything. Andrew Wilson here is going into some of the numbers based on the proportions that these two women came out with. One of them was suggesting some 30 million men in America. They believe 30 million men in America are very likely to assault them. And the other one in red believed 55 million would assault them. So I think I'm at the right place now.
Which would include murder. The second one's 55 million men, by your estimate, would want
You gotta
to
fix that, Nick.
do something horrible to you in that situation. The other one's estimates were still beyond high, but you really think that 33 million men in the United States want to murder you in a forest if they could? Like, honestly, do you think that?
No, I was kind of just shooting a random number. I wasn't like, I feel like it's so broad. I don't know the percentages very for that. So no, I meant not a lot. Let's just go with not a lot because.
Okay, and then the other one's roughly 55 million. You think roughly 55 million men want to murder you in a forest?
No.
That is no.
I would like to say that like the misconception and like the high estimates are coming from the idea that as women we are kind of conditioned to fear the idea of getting attacked by a man and be afraid of that. And so our estimate would be high because we already think the probability of getting attacked would be high given that women are not necessarily safe when they walk alone. I think
That was the bit I wanted to highlight. This links back to exactly what I said earlier on. The fear, the propaganda, the hate, the phobia. Put this in terms of race or religion. If this was women are conditioned to fear being attacked by black people. White women are conditioned to fear being attacked by white people. American women are conditioned to fear Muslims and be afraid of Muslims and expect that a very high number of random Muslims will attack any woman when they walk alone. You can't get away with it, but you can get away with saying it about men if you're a woman. This is pure misandry. It is pure bigotry. I'm not saying there aren't any bad men out there. There are. There are also a lot of bad women out there. And we've got laws galore to punish men who do these things. And most men will also protect others who are more vulnerable from such attacks. But things might be changing there because men can no longer rely on the law or on the person they are saving to be grateful. So there's a growing proportion of men who will now no longer protect any woman. Only women that they know. So it's very disconcerting, the propaganda and the indoctrination to dehumanize men, to make men, all men, to be dangerous. But because a lot of red pill people understand this, they understand that women have been indoctrinated like this. And they understand if they approach any woman, their life can be made exceptionally difficult just via the medium of social media. Men's reaction to that is, in one case, MGTOW. Men going their own way, keeping away from women, let women make the first move, make sure you protect yourself, never get into a cohabiting or a marriage situation. You can date, you can have a relationship. You always protect yourself though. And you will never get married, you will never cohabit. And that is the MGTOW position. And you walk away when the red flags just say, nah, this isn't working well enough anymore. So, as I said earlier, this whole conversation degenerates into insults and name-calling and the women feeling very unhappy at being there. They believe they were brought there on false pretenses. So it does degenerate after that. But these bits close to the beginning of the whole episode, really interesting. The bottom line, these women have been conditioned to fear and hate men. And it's pure misandry that society tolerates. Instead of having equal laws for all, where, at least in the UK, misogyny has been added to hate speech laws, while misandry has not. Which is a bit shocking, really. There appears to be a clear legal push to allow hate speech and hate actions by people with certain traits when perpetrated against others whose sex characteristic is meant to be equally protected. It's just nuts. I do not understand anything nowadays to do with UK law. There seems to be no principles to it whatsoever. There's no values that you can hang your hat on and say, we're protected equally. Despite the whole push of feminism and everything throughout my whole life since the mid-1960s, every push was towards equality. And we don't have it. We have supremacy and favoritism. We do not have one law for all. Anyway, let's move on quickly. I want to look at some of the implications of how the changes in society, based on the things we've discussed, and the open hate towards men, is going to have some very long-term consequences. This is from the Daily Mail Online. France to offer all 18 to 25-year-olds free fertility checks to combat falling birth rates. This was published on the 9th of May, 2024, by John Ely. France A nation so famous for its lovers that it has a kiss named after it needs help making babies, according to their president, who has announced a sweeping series of measures to address what he called a scourge of infertility in his country. What he's offering is among other things, a free fertility checkup to all 18 to 25-year-olds, both male and female. I'm a bit lost for words myself. If I know 18 to 25-year-olds at all, fertility is not the main thing on their agenda. A lot of them would prefer to be able to turn off their fertility for that period of their lives and just go around enjoying themselves and enjoying, if it is their want, the opposite sex. Macron also mentioned a campaign to help women preserve their fertility if they want to have children later in life, like egg freezing, as well as a national research project into infertility. Okay. So the state is looking at helping women preserve their fertility so that they can become mothers at 55? Their children will be 16 when they reach 70 years old. Are you sure about this? Is this the right way of doing it as a government plan? There's some numbers here on different fertility rates across Europe. Macron hinted people would be reimbursed by state health insurance so they could establish a complete assessment paid for by the taxpayer. Okay. We're going to organise campaigns in favour of oocyte self-preservation for women who want to have children later in life. So oocyte, I had no idea how to pronounce that. That could be pronounced dog botherer or something. I haven't got a clue. But what it means is preserving eggs. Preserving your eggs. Yeah. France's fertility rate, a national measure of the average number of live births per woman, stands at 1.8. Significantly above the UK's, which sits at 1.5, according to the latest UN-backed data. Now, I've no idea what date that UN-backed data is, but the first information up above was from 2022. Both figures are below what scientists call the fertility replacement level of 2.1, the amount needed for a population to replace one generation with the next. Even celebrities like Elon Musk, along with other experts, have been warning about the global threat of underpopulation. Earlier this year, scientists warned 75% of countries would face this demographic problem by 2050, with the problem particularly dire in developed Western nations who could become completely reliant on immigration to keep their societies and economies running. Now, the Daily Mail is actually hitting on all of the correct things here. The issue is governments must maintain this concept of growth and more and more and more coming in all the time through GDP. It has to keep coming in all the time. It's got to grow all the time. We've got to get better and better all the time. Whereas any market, anywhere, has ups and downs naturally. But governments demand and societies demand that things get easier and better. And the problem is, once things are easy, then the people are fucking lazy. Our economies and societies will run to the level that our economies and societies can actually deliver. And that means some hard times are coming. However, we do have technology. AI will take a lot of the jobs of the people that will no longer exist and produce more and more money going into the economies. But people are living longer. The ones that do live, they will live longer, unless there's a load of wars and the like, where we will all get obliterated and make our societies even smaller. But AI will replace all of those things, and everybody will get older. So Macron's ideas are going to be taken up by the rest of the world, and they will start thinking about ways of doing it. Now, if you think that your government is not going to put an extra tax on single people, as opposed to give benefits to people who have a number of children, there will be extra tax put on. You're single, you will pay 50%. Whereas if you have children, you will only pay 20% in tax. Your 50% tax rate will subsidize the people who have children, because that's the only way that governments can start to coerce people to have babies, because nobody's having fucking babies at the moment. 3 in 4 countries, 75% of countries, face the threat of underpopulation by 2050 because of the world's plummeting birth rates, and that by 2100 could rise to 97% of all nations, in what experts have described as a staggering social change. When did this staggering social change start? It started at the beginning of 1970, when we introduced no-fault divorce and the pill and abortion. Those were staggering social changes, but they've taken 50 years to actually come to fruition. We've also had a lot of people saying we need to depopulate anyway. 8 billion, 9 billion people is much too much. We can't handle this. And none of our governments have been planning for that. They've all been planning for constant increases in growth, in GDP, in countries and societies getting better and better and better and enjoying themselves. Things are going to turn around because the world is going to go to shit. And then the tough men, the good men, are going to come to the fore. The study was in the medical journal The Lancet, and there's a picture of the ever so sexy Elon Musk. Yeah, right, okay. So, 2022, I get the feeling all of this data was from 2022. Some interesting stuff here. United States of America, 1.89. Russia, 1.79. Instead of 2.1 as the fertility rate. And there's a bunch of people from America who keep going on, yeah, but Russia is really fucked. Russia's got major problems. China, 1.66. Russia's got major problems. However, the Daily Mail, on the 25th of April, let me stop that and I'll quickly jump to present this one. Panic as United States birth rates drop to their lowest in a century as top researcher declares a fertility crisis. A fire that threatens our survival. Latest data from the CDC released yesterday, the 24th of April, takes the fertility rate down to 1.62 births per woman in 2023, the lowest since the government began recording the metric in the 1930s. 1.62. Now, I don't have the figures for other countries, but that is way below the 1. Was it 1.79 for Russia? 1.66 for China? Everybody is getting fucked by this, and it doesn't matter how many people you bring in through migration. Migration is not solving this problem. As soon as these people arrive in these Western countries that are very expensive, where you need shitloads of money and at least 2 people earning full-time incomes to be able to afford somewhere to live, and then you've got to actually be working at a higher level to be able to afford children in these places and pay the huge amounts of tax that are demanded. This is why birth rates are going down. It is not possible to live in these countries in the way that society has said this is how you should be living, with all of our trinkets and gadgets, and we need to spend money on X, Y, and Z that we don't actually need, but we feel we desperately have to have. This is where the problem comes in. So it's irrelevant if you bring people in. Their birth rates are not making any change. And it doesn't matter where they've come from. Because the people in Central Africa who are having to have 8 births per woman, they have to have 8 births per woman because of whatever cultural reasons that there are while they are in those countries, which might be high levels of infant mortality. It might be other problems within society that lead to children either disappearing or being kidnapped or being taken into some kind of army somewhere. I don't know. I don't know what causes these high level of births there, but there isn't the same requirement for the number of births when you get to the Western countries. So let's go back to... Let's go back to the panic. I brought the wrong thing up again. It's because I'm an expert. I'm an expert at this stuff. So all this stuff here, claiming United States 1.9, it's down to 1.6. I've no idea what the rest are. Everything's going down. Without replenishment of an aging population, scientists claim public services and economic growth are at risk. Of course, economic growth is at risk. Economic growth is the problem. We have got this idea that we must always grow every single year, and oh, it's a recession, we've hit a recession and the government must be kicked out and blah blah. It's like, this is cyclical. It should be cyclical, but it isn't. They play with the numbers, they play with inflation, they play with producing new fiat money, just poof, oh, we'll have a load more, and then they pretend there's GDP increases. Ever declining birth rates will also pile extra pressure on the NHS and social care. take the word NHS out, extra pressure on health services and social care. So this is particularly UK focused when talking about the NHS. Yes, that's exactly what will happen. We're already under those pressures. The NHS and social care are both fucked. You can't get into either of them. The reasons why people are having less children. Some women are simply enjoying the independence modern society brings compared to a century ago. They weren't here a century ago and are choosing not to have children, which is their right. They can choose not to have children by all means, but that's actually quite a small proportion, I think. I think that they choose not to have children until they are in their 30s, and then they go, oh my God, I've got to get married to do this. And it's like, well, you've not exactly been traditional prior to your 30s, and getting married is a traditional thing on the basis of religion. And who are you going to marry? Because the people that are available to be married, the blokes that are available to be married that are in their 30s, are really not happy with women having been completely looked over throughout their 20s. They had a shit time and they realise women are not to be trusted. Or they're not very nice because they didn't treat them nicely throughout the 20s. And they also start thinking about, actually, if I look at divorce, if I look at marriage, divorce is more than 50% nowadays. And of the marriages that continue, the other 50%, 80 to 85% of those are really unhappy. There is no benefit to being married. So it's not a case in all cases that they choose not to have children. It is a case that they might have left it too late to find somebody with whom they can have children. And then they just become barren. Which is why, possibly, President Macron wants all women to fertilise, to preserve their fertilised eggs. Others are only choosing to have children later in life and instead focus on their careers during their younger years. But as I just said, you can choose to have children later in life, but you've got to have the children later in life. And I think a lot of them aren't. As fertility is linked to age, this can lead to some women never having children or having fewer than they planned. There we go. And I get the feeling that number is going to go up and up and up. And it's not necessarily the fertility link. It's because they can't find somebody that they're prepared to have a child with. For men, lifestyle factors include the rising prevalence of obesity. See, the rising prevalence of obesity is not just for men. I would have thought that this is also a particular issue for a lot of women as well. But yeah, it has a downward impact on men's fertility, I guess, is what they're saying. I'd have thought it would also have quite a big impact on women's fertility. Especially if they're that big you can't get in. Anyway, let's move on next. Rising cost of living pressures, especially the price of childcare and housing, is another factor that puts a dampener on couples having children or deciding to have multiple. Well, that's the end of that. What they didn't mention is that by something like 2040, a majority of women will be single and will have been single throughout and will be childless by the time they reach 40, is it? Which is way, way, way past the proverbial wall having hit. So, as Nerdy says, women got their way. And it is going to lead to major contractions, and there are major implications of that, which include war, and it includes crumbling infrastructure, crumbling societies, and no one around to protect or provide for women, because they'll be off doing other shit on their own, because women have rejected men, because women hate men. That's the misandry. This all links together. There is nothing in this article about the misandry that is the major problem. Women are being indoctrinated from a very young age that men are dangerous. It is a dehumanization, a phobia, a fear, and a hate of men.
Drizzle, drizzle, baby.
That one was for nerdy. There you go. Anyway, that is going to do for me today. I'm hoping that Brojo might be live, and I'll go and join him on his stream, which I'm hoping is going to start in about 5 minutes at 4:20 United States time.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Say goodbye.